This story begins with a man named Doug Woods. He is a wildlife photographer as well as the host of a survival show called Woods vs. His job on the show is to go into remote forests and mysterious places to teach viewers how to survive. Doug has been doing his job for 2 seasons, each receiving different responses. Over the past 2 seasons, the show was considered less successful, so as a result, no major TV stations wanted to air it. The reason was that Doug often made dry or unfunny jokes on the show. Now, Doug and his team are planning to start filming for the 3rd season soon. However, if this season the show is still not liked by the audience, their efforts could end in bankruptcy. Doug and his team decided to take a big risk. They chose one of the toughest places on Earth, a remote forest in northern Canada. That night, after saying goodbye to his daughter, Doug set off with his team to their destination. The team consisted of his younger brother named Terry, the show's producer named Bill, and a woman named Angie. Long story short, they finally arrived in a small town where Doug and his team planned to meet a guide named Duncan, who knew the area very well because the forest they were going to visit was known to be extremely dangerous. After meeting Duncan, they then set off again by boat. The plan was for Doug to be alone in the forest for 5 days, and after those 5 days, he would be picked up again. To anticipate any unwanted incidents, Doug was given a satellite phone in case he encountered danger or something similar. As soon as he arrived at his destination, Doug was left alone, where the real challenge now awaited him. In the forest, Doug set up his camera, marking the start of the 3rd season of Woods vs. Doug took out all the items he had brought with him, including a hat, a flash for his camera, an energy drink, an apple, a knife, and some chewing gum. So first of all, Doug had to find a place to rest and take shelter for the next 5 days. Before nightfall, he began gathering wood from fallen tree trunks. But unfortunately, while removing the branches, a splinter of wood got stuck right under his fingernail. Doug did manage to pull it out, but a small incident like this serves as a reminder that even the tiniest things can become a very serious challenge. After finishing building his shelter, the next step was to start a fire. Doug used a soda can to reflect sunlight onto dry wood shavings.
So that the sun can bounce right off it.
When night fell, Doc decided to communicate with his team using a satellite phone. However, Doc was a bit disappointed here because, unbelievably, his friends were actually enjoying the night, relaxing to the sound of music. Meanwhile, he was alone in the middle of the forest. Tonight, Doc had to sleep on an empty stomach because earlier he apparently didn't have the chance to hunt. In the middle of the night, Doc was suddenly awakened by a loud noise like an explosion. Doc didn't know what had happened and thought that the sound might have been caused by an earthquake. But one thing was certain, when morning came and Doc was walking around, he saw several parts of the forest that looked as if they had split apart. Curious, Doc then tried to investigate by approaching the riverbank. When he arrived, Doc was shocked to see that the area was already filled with dead fish. Doc suspected that the explosion he heard last night was caused by a meteor falling in this area. He actually wanted to take the dead fish with him, but just as he was about to do so, Doc saw a wolf in the distance. The animal approached the river and then turned away without touching a single fish. It was clear that the wolf could sense something that he couldn't. Because of that, if the wolf didn't want to eat them, then Doc certainly wouldn't eat the fish either. Worried about the situation, Doc then decided to contact his team to report what he had just seen. However, when he arrived, Doc found that his phone had no signal. With no means of communication and an empty stomach, Doc finally went hunting by setting up 3 traps to catch rabbits or other small animals. While waiting, he kept recording the surroundings, documenting everything until, later in the afternoon, Doc went to check the traps he had set earlier. Here, Doc discovered that he had actually managed to catch 2 rabbits. But just as he was feeling excited, Doc suddenly heard a mysterious sound that instantly made him freeze.
Let's eat!
Since he didn't find anything suspicious, Doc then returned and prepared dinner while continuing to record the activity. While waiting, Doc took the time to check the signal on his satellite phone as well as his cell phone. But unfortunately, neither of those communication devices could get a signal. Amid the silence, Doc once again heard a sound coming from behind the trees. Here, Doc assumed that it might have come from a wolf or a bear. After that, Doc finished his first rabbit, while the second one he planned to keep as a supply for the next day by hanging it in a tree so it wouldn't attract the attention of wild animals.
Yeah. Oh. Piece of cake.
At night, Doc spends some time playing chess alone to relieve his boredom. But after a while, Doc hears the sound of a tree branch breaking from within the darkness again. From there, Dog looks around the area, but he still doesn't find anything suspicious. Unbeknownst to him, something is indeed watching Dog from behind the bushes. The rabbit that had previously been hung up had apparently been taken away in secret. Dog starts to feel truly scared when he's about to go to sleep, as he hears some kind of animal scream coming from not far from where he is.
What was that?
Out of curiosity, Doc then activated the night vision mode on his camera and began observing the forest around him. But unfortunately, he didn't find anything, which then caused Doc to be unable to sleep all night. In the morning, after staying up all night, Doc now felt pain all over his body due to lack of rest. At this moment, Doc actually wanted to give up, but he realized how important this event was to him. Doc ultimately forced himself to continue, even though he was overwhelmed by an incredible sense of fear. Feeling hungry, Doc then grabbed his camera and went to check on the rabbit he had kept. But to his shock, he discovered that the rabbit was gone. Amidst his confusion, Doc then tried to contact his team, but just like before, his phone couldn't get any signal at all. Trying to remain perfectly calm, Doc carefully reset the intricate trap and patiently waited, hoping that he could indeed catch a brand new rabbit. But when he eventually returned to thoroughly check it, Doc was utterly shocked to discover that his carefully constructed trap had been completely and utterly destroyed. Inside one of the traps, he found a strange black substance that he had never seen before. Doc then returned to his campsite to get the satellite phone. But strangely, the phone had disappeared without a trace. And not only that, Doc noticed another oddity when he realized that someone seemed to have moved the chess pieces on the board he always played with. Doc now realized that he was not alone. Someone out there seemed to be watching him. Doc wondered if maybe this was the work of his friends, deliberately making the event more exciting. But all of that was just speculation, because no matter what, Doc still had to continue with the event. That night, by the warmth of the campfire, Doc went back to playing chess as usual until he was finally able to get some rest. The next morning, Doc packed up his things and left the area. He chose to move to a new location and set up camp somewhere else. There, Doc ultimately found a rather large, sturdy rock that he could effectively use as his brand new secure shelter. Even though there were only 2 days left, Doc had to start all over again, lighting a campfire, searching for food, and so on. But when he arrived at a certain spot, Doc found a shelter that looked exactly like the one he had built when he first arrived. In fact, at that place, the campfire was made using the same can, including his satellite phone, which turned out to be there and had been taken apart. With this evidence, Doc became even more convinced that there was someone else around him, as if that person had been studying everything he did. Not long after, Doc accidentally fell, where he discovered the carcass of a rabbit and also a wolf nearby. A mysterious sound was then heard, causing Doc to immediately hide under the rocks. While observing his surroundings, Doc realized that the rock he was hiding under was actually a trap, identical in shape to the one he had set for the rabbit, but this one was much larger. From there, Doc then ran back to his camp just to shake off his fear. But just as he arrived, Doc was startled again when he saw his chess piece move for the second time.
Set that up. I know you're out there! Hey, asshole!
That night, Doug set up 3 cameras around the area, hoping to find out who was actually watching him. However, when he woke up the next morning, he found that all 3 cameras he had set up had been moved. Fed up with this game, Doug then decided to end the show. From there, Doug then began recording his final scene, including creating thick smoke as a signal that he wanted to be picked up. But as Doug was doing this, suddenly a loud explosion echoed, followed by a shockwave that threw him into the water. Despite suffering injuries from the impact, Doug managed to survive and return to the surface. After stopping for a moment, Doug then started running as far as he could. He ran so far that he reached the spot where his friends were camping. However, as he approached the area, Doug accidentally fell into a hole, which caused him to lose consciousness. That night, Doug finally regained consciousness. After bandaging the wound on his hand, Doug then tried to climb out of the hole, and with great effort, he finally managed to get out, eventually arriving at the place where his team was camping. Strangely, the campsite was deserted, with no signs of life, and what shocked Doug was when he found Terry hanging from a tree, exactly like how Doug had hung the rabbit earlier. Doug quickly took Terry down, who turned out to still be alive. From there, Doug ran to the tent to call for help using the radio communication device. No one answered the call, which made Doug even more panicked. Not long after, he came out carrying a first aid kit, but as soon as he was outside, he saw a creature standing right in front of him. Realizing he was in danger, Doc then ran, luring the creature to the same hole where he had fallen earlier. Doc managed to knock the creature down by using the camera flash, causing it to fall into the hole, and then buried it underneath a pile of large rocks. From there, Doc then returned to help Terry, but unfortunately, he was already too late. Terry was found dead along with his 2 friends, who had also been skinned. After burying his 3 friends, Doc then recorded a final message for his family in case he couldn't make it out of this place. After mourning everything that had happened to him, Doc then returned to his friend's tent to treat his wounds. Here, Doc found a map and realized that Duncan's house, the guide, was actually only a few kilometers away. Without wasting any time, Doc gathered all the supplies and started walking toward Duncan's house. Long story short, when he arrived, Doc found that Duncan's house was already empty. In the midst of his exhaustion, Doc accidentally saw an emergency broadcast on television reporting news about alien attacks all over the world. Major cities were destroyed, and the government urged survivors to immediately leave urban areas. Even after hearing the news, Doc refused to give up. He stuck to his main goal, which was to get out of this area and reunite with his family. But just as he was about to leave using the boat, Duncan appeared and demanded that Doc leave his boat alone. Doc didn't have time to explain what was really happening, because before Duncan could do anything, the alien suddenly reappeared and attacked Duncan. Fortunately, Doc managed to kill the creature by shredding it to pieces with the boat's propeller.
Checkmate.
So, after everything calmed down, Doc then steered the boat through the cold night. Here, Doc apparently still hadn't realized that it wasn't over yet, because right above him, hundreds of meteors could be seen falling, signaling that even more aliens were on their way. That was the storyline of the film Man vs., which was released in 2015. What do you guys think? Was it exciting or still lacking? Go ahead and leave your comments below. Alright then, that's all for our story this time. Thank you to everyone who watched, and see you again in the next video. Ka.